Wow. I don't talk often about video games here, but anyways, let's jump right into it. So, South Park's kind of my hyperfixation right now. There is a lot to be said about the show. It's got fun characters, it's got unironically cool stories and lore, despite it being a stupid, goofy show to watch while smoking weed. And there's also interesting stuff behind the scenes. However, I am going to be talking about South Park's video games mostly because it's my current hyperfixation right now. To be specific, I'm going to talk about why Fractured But Whole is better than Stick of Truth. Hell, I would even say it's a little bit overrated. Whoa there, buddy. Before you get into the comments saying horrible things, I want to make myself clear. I don't hate the Stick of Truth. I absolutely love it. Hell, it is part of my childhood, and I have some nostalgia with it. When I say I think it's a little bit overrated, I'm not saying bad. The word overrated doesn't mean bad. I just don't it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I just think it's not as good as some people say it is. I would also like to clarify that I struggle with borderline personality disorder, or BPD for short. Because of my BPD, I struggle with mixed feelings and gray thinking, but I've learned to get better at it, and I am still trying to get better at it as a whole. I can both love a video game and think it's flawed, and I at the same time, and that's exactly what I'm going to talk about. Before I start, I would like to say that this is all my personal opinion, and most of these are just nitpicks because, as I said before, I love this game, but it does have some flaws. Also, some spoilers for both games. I recommend watching this video as background noise while you draw or play games or do something. Okay, enough yapping. Let's actually start in no particular order. I would like to start off with the fart powers, which is a sentence I would never thought I would say, but here we are. In both games, the new kid learns different powers in different parts of the game that help both inside and outside combat. However, in the Stick of Truth, I personally struggled learning them in the tutorials, and it took me a couple tries to do them. I honestly never used fart powers aside from the final boss in battle because they are super hard to control. I guess I'm not getting that achievement on Steam. But anyways, I'm not sure if anyone else struggled with the controls, but personally I found them to be pretty annoying. However, I personally found Fractured But Whole, on the other hand, much easier to control. You just have to go in one direction, and that's it. So simple, and it's done. Next thing I want to talk about is a little bit about the combat itself. This is kind of nitpicky. Okay, so let's say you're super high playing a video game, and you forgot to click the extra button when you selected the attack button. Well, in Stick of Truth, if you forget to hit that extra button on the attack, you will miss your turn, not even a petty attack that does less damage. Fractured But Whole, when I'm stoned and I accidentally miss a button, it still hits the attack for me. Now, I may not have 100% knocked out the enemy, but hey, at least I got to down to 1 HP left. Another thing about the comic is that I would like to talk about the allies. Okay, so I'm a huge Pokemon fan. Ever since I was a kid, I always enjoyed double battles because that meant more characters to play with, and that was really fun in my opinion. You can have allies in both games. In the Fractured But Whole, you have 15 characters to play as, including the DLC. Now, obviously, you can't play as all 15 characters in one battle. That would make the game way too easy. You can only pick 3 to fight with per battle, but you can make different combinations, and you will have characters that will say different things to each other for all of them, and that's pretty neat. Now, how many does Stick of Truth have? Only 6, and you can only use one of them per fight. I guess this was done so that you aren't too strong with different abilities all at once. Again, like I said earlier, most of these are nitpicks. One of the playable characters in Stick of Truth is Jimmy, who, by the way, is so criminally underrated. I felt like Jimmy was underused in the Stick of Truth. Yes, he had his own boss fight, but so do all other of the playable characters. All have boss fights. I would have loved to hear him talk more at least once in a cutscene, near the end of the game with Clyde's castle. There's probably a chance that he did have that one line in that area of the game that I most likely forgot because of the lack of him talking. I felt like he got more screen time in Fractured But Whole, especially because he was one of the characters in the DLC, which I will talk about DLC a bit later in this video as we go along. Another thing about combat is ultimate attacks slash super abilities. I know these are technically different things, but I feel like they're very similar enough. Like, I would even say it's a bit of a spectrum on how similar they are, but also different at the same time. Anyways, in the Fractured But Whole, you have your ultimate that charges each turn. Once it's fully charged, you click the button and that's it. You can either use the ultimate attack for yourself or one of your allies can use a special attack. As for the Stick of Truth, some of these special attacks are mildly frustrating. Not only do you have to press different buttons all at once, but some of them are so hard to control. For example, I recently decided to play as a Jew class, and yes, that's an actual class you can play as, because I never played with this class before, and I kept on messing up the Sling of David ability in the fucking tutorial to the point where the game said fuck it, just use a normal attack. Some of your allies' special attacks are also hard to control. For example, with Princess Kenny's unicorn attack, you have to make sure you don't press a button too fast because you might click the wrong one, but you can't be too slow either, or else Kenny will die when you're trying to use this set attack. It can be a little bit annoying and frustrating, but at least Kenny has the immortality power. Anyways, continuing on, I would like to talk about classes. In the Fractured But Whole, there are 12 hero classes to choose from, including the ones from DLC. If you don't like powers you picked, you can always change them at any time. Eventually, you do unlock all the powers at some point, and you can mix them up, however, to whatever powers you like. In the Stick of Truth, you only get 4 classes. Unless you want to restart the game, you are stuck with said class. Now, I get that these were all based on medieval fantasy roles, with the exception of the Jew, but you cannot change it later if you do not like it, so yeah. Another thing I would like to talk about is DLC. There is currently no DLC for the Stick of Truth, and considering this game is like 12 years old, I don't think there ever will be. Also, holy shit, I was like 10 or 11 when this game came out. I'm like physically old right now. It is kind of a shame because I think the game really needs one. Like, you can tell that there was cut in the game if you watch some of the trailers versus the actual game, but I guess that is a part of when you're working on a project with more than one person. You won't always have something your way 100%. And sometimes that can be okay because other people's ideas can improve something, but in this case, I don't think it did. And in fact, I think it needs more ideas. Anyways, the Fractured But Whole does not have 1, not even 2, but 3 DLCs. I cannot recommend these DLCs enough. 2 of them are more story content that comes with new classes and allies, like I mentioned before, and the other one is a challenge mode that unlocks items and artifacts that you can't get in the normal gameplay. This next problem is kind of nitpicky-ish. I don't really know. Whatever, it's my video, I'll talk about it anyway. You cannot pick your gender in the Stick of Truth. I'm glad they retconned this in Fractured But Whole. Fun fact, the Fractured But Whole has the most gender and orientation options in any video game ever. And it's also not even played for jokes. Like, you're expecting a game from 2017 to make jokes about gender and pronouns, ooh, spooky. But nah, it's played seriously and you have to fight the rednecks regardless of what options you pick, even if you're a cis hetero boy. Alright, I'm about to get a little bit personal here. I mean, I've been personal throughout this whole video, but you guys get what I mean. I'm someone who struggles with gender dysphoria disorder, formerly known as gender identity disorder. I won't get into too much detail with my struggles and childhood, as oversharing is a bad habit I'm working hard to break out of. I would like to share a little bit about where I am in my gender journey, and one day would share where I am in my transition, but I would like to save that for another time. Anyways, I consider myself to be trans and non-binary. I'm demigender or demigirl to be specific. I'm not completely a woman, but I'm also not completely non-binary. Having a video game that lets me pick the gender I really am means a lot to me, especially since there is not a lot of LGBT plus rep or options in a lot of video games. The best part of this entire thing in the game is that this is a fucking South Park video game of all things, which is really funny and really awesome at the same time. Guys, South Park, South Park secretly woke, guys. Also, if you have a problem with what I just said, kindly go away, smoke some weed, and then maybe come back when you're more relaxed. Okay? Okay. The next problem I have is yet another nitpick, but here I go. And that is, of course, the summons. In Stick of Truth, you have up to 4 characters to defeat a battle for you. However, you can't use them during boss battles, and you can only use them once per day. And no, you can't wait until the next real-life day, like my autistic ass thought it was gonna be like. You need to wait till the next day in the video game, and you have to go to all the way where the characters are, talk to them, and if you want to use that summon again. This is a little bit frustrating to me. In the Fractured Butthole, there's also only 4 summons that are also limited, but at least you can use them during boss fights. This is probably just a personal preference, just like this entire video, but personally I think this was a slight upgrade. Alright, for my next problem with this game is the clothing. In Stick of Truth, there are many different clothing and items. Each one has a different ability in battle. Because of this, you choose if you want to wear clothes you don't like but are really strong in battle, or would you rather wear clothes that you do like but are weaker in battle. In the Fractured Butthole, you can pick whatever clothes you want and whatever you think suits best, because they do not have any abilities, and that's pretty cool. As for my final problem with the Stick of Truth is that it's pretty short. Like, I remember one time as a kid I beat this game in one sitting during winter break. That's how short it is. Which, I guess it's fine for other people who don't play RPGs that often, but I'm an epic gamer. Fractured Butthole has much more content to play through, and personally I enjoy that a lot. Plus, there's also DLC, as I mentioned before. I would also like to mention this really odd thing in the Stick of Truth. If you pick to be on Kyle's side during the school battle, in the cutscene where you find a ginger kid that becomes a zombie, they literally reuse the exact same line that Cartman says, quote, "Somehow the green goo makes ginger hallway monitors even lamer," which feels super out of character for Kyle. Oh yeah, another cool thing about Fractured Butthole is that you can actually beat up the police. Anyways, that's why I think Fractured Butthole is better than the Stick of Truth. I would like to say this again, that I do not hate the Stick of Truth. It is easily one of my top favorite RPGs ever. I just think it has flaws that are mostly nitpicks, to be fair, but people don't seem to talk about it as much. Hell, I might make a video about stuff I liked better in Stick of Truth versus the Fractured Butthole to balance it out. Anyways, guys, which game did you like better? Which class did you play as? What kind of games do you want the South Park studio to make next? Let me know in the comments below. However, please be nice to each other. I do not want any sort of drama on this channel, and I want to focus on sharing our thoughts in a more welcoming way. Anyways, I hope you all had a good night, and see you in the next video. Or not. I don't know. Bye!